All on here sharing. I look like oh man. Oh yeah, I see it. We're in there. All right, so I'm getting ready to share it right now. Yeah, share it.
I'm not on Facebook.
Oh, not on Facebook. Okay.
You that guy that doesn't have it, huh? You got off.
All right. Hadn't had some technical difficulties, so we're going to do our panel discussion in just a few minutes. Here is going to give some time for people to transition from Zoom over here to Facebook Live, but I am seeing that people getting on there now. So just a couple minutes. If everybody is watching, please like share it so other people can see the this live stream as well. And then we'll get started very soon, probably about a minute or so, with our official discussion that we're going to have for wrap up our MLK annual breakfast. So yeah. Got about 84. We'll get a little bit of water here.
Circle K makes great coffee.
Sponsorship.
Yeah, so we were having some difficulties with Zoom and stuff. Zoom, we were only able to get 100 people in. That was the maximum capacity. So we chose to end the Zoom and get on Facebook so we could potentially get more people. And right now we're at 90, so I think doing it this way will be a little bit better. And obviously, you all are already watching it, but if you share it, that way we spread the word and get everybody a chance to log on and start viewing. You could find it on African American Pastors Alliance page, my own page, Jerome, Chris, BCSC, obviously. And want to thank everybody here from BCSC for allowing us to do it live from their page and also here at the admin building. Really appreciate all their help and their technical support, all their equipment. So I think you guys ready?
Let's roll, man. Let's
Ready to go? All right. Well, good morning. Thank you all for viewing, being a part of our annual Martin Luther King Day breakfast. Things are a lot different this year, as you already know. And to continue that trend of being different, for my keynote address, I guess I wanted to switch things up and go with an idea that I heard from my good friend, my best friend, who just so happens to be the first African American city councilman for the city of Columbus, Indiana. And so he shared this idea with me, and immediately we both thought, like, what if we did this for MLK? So I'll kick it over to him. He's here with me today, so I'll kick it over here to him, and he could tell us a little bit about how this idea came about and the purpose of the day, what we're doing here today. So, Councilman Jerone Wood.
Appreciate it, John. So yeah, definitely excited for this opportunity. Appreciate you, gentlemen, coming out today.
Of course.
So basically, just kind of go over the idea. We sat there, we talked a little bit about what we've done previous years with Martin Luther King Day, right? And we felt that this year, switch things up a little bit, have a conversation. Basically, the conversations needed for the community, right? Needed to talk about some of those hard questions, some of those difficult questions, whether it's about race, um, just to have that conversation, to be open, have that open dialogue, to understand that we can have this hard conversation, but understand that we're still friends, we're still people at the end of the day, right? So this is a great opportunity. Definitely want to kind of jump on what John said and appreciate everybody that did come out today. So for everybody who's watching on Facebook Live, we definitely appreciate you guys. For Josh Burnett, Superintendent Dr. Roberts, for allowing us to have this building and do this today. We definitely appreciate it because we probably wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys. So we definitely appreciate it. So yeah, John, if you want to, man, let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions. But before we do that, I want to take a quick second, introduce these two gentlemen to my left and to my right that woke up this morning and decided to join us. We know it was early, it was cold. But yeah, to my left, I have Kyle Hendricks, good friend of mine, known him for quite a while. We have lunch quite often. It's very good. To my right, Chris Scott. I've known Chris since I moved to Columbus, so I've known him pretty much, him and his family, my entire life. Good friend of mine, and we definitely appreciate you gentlemen for coming out today.
Absolutely.
And
Thanks for
I think
having
we're gonna
us.
have an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
And let's get to it. Let's go.
Yeah. Again, I want to thank all three of you for being here because we're gonna have a real conversation and we're live streaming it. So that's not something that's really easy. I don't think for all four of us, it's going to be our real thoughts and how we think about things. It's not scripted. We have a few questions that we have given each other beforehand, but we're going to have a real conversation. So we're not going to be attacking each other. We're not trying to slander anybody or anything like that. We're trying to learn from each other, to see a different perspective, a different side about some of these things that we're talking about. But today is a very special day, Martin Luther King Day. Martin Luther King is a great man. He means so much to me. Ever since I can remember, I've always been taught about the civil rights movement, about Martin Luther King, and so many others that were part of that movement and a part of the implementing change and standing up for what is right. And just his life, his entire life, the way he grew up, he went to college, started college when he was 15 years old. I was 15. I was still playing with toys and stuff. You know what I'm saying? He's in college, and so well educated. And we were talking earlier, is just like every word that he says is just so powerful, so potent. Is just filled with so much substance, and just amazing speaker. And I can't imagine being there in like real life and hearing him speak. Just watching videos and listening to his voice is just awestruck, but he's a great man. He sacrificed so much to give back to his community, to the country, to the world, and inspiration to so many to implement change. And he's at the end of it, he gave up his life, really. Well, his life was taken from him, just for speaking truth, and inspiring change in other people. So Martin Luther King means a lot to me. This day means a lot to me. This breakfast means a lot to me. Even though things are different, but I've gone to these breakfasts, ever since I can remember. It was at East, it was at North, and Commons. Now we're Facebook. So
And good food too, man.
yeah, the food's always good, and get a chance to see everybody. Rock your new Christmas gear to the breakfast and stuff. Try to look fresh. Like, yeah, what's up? But it's always been something that has been very special to me this time of year. So just want to get that's me though. But Chris or Kyle, what is Martin Luther King or Martin Luther King Day? What does it mean to you? And jump in whenever you want.
Take it.
Go ahead, man.
My strategy coming in was just to let Kyle answer every question. So, answer last,
Throw it back and
let you
forth.
guys put some wisdom out there. For me, as a Christian, as a worship leader at a church in town, I'm trying to come at all these, this conversation from a biblical perspective, as much as I can, a true biblical perspective, because that's been super twisted, distorted, as we've seen even in recent events, but all throughout history, right? God's people misrepresenting, misquoting, misusing, and twisting the word of God to do people wrong, seriously. And so coming at this, thinking about what Martin Luther King Day means to me, it just reminds me sort of this isn't true necessarily, but it reminds you sort of Egyptian slavery in the Old Testament when God's people eventually cried out to God and said, hey, we need help after years and years of slavery. And it feels like that started to happen when Martin Luther King was speaking. And when you had people saying things are not right, we need help, and injustice is happening like all around us, and it's not right. And so it feels like that was sort of the turn of when that started to really go mainstream and say like things are not okay the way they are.
Yeah.
The mistreatment of Black people, and we just want to be equal, man.
Like Moses.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
When you hear him speak,
Let my people.
It feels like that. When you go back and listen to
Absolutely.
things, it feels like that. The imagery he used, the power with which he spoke, being a Christian man, being a preacher, it felt like he was saying, it's time to let my people go.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was from the Lord.
Yeah.
Whether you agree or disagree with whatever tactics you might agree or disagree with, it felt like there was something divine about it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say he's Jesus. I'm not trying to say anything, that anything like that, but just to be clear.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, so to me, Martin Luther King growing up, he was it wasn't like he was a superhero to me, but he had that persona, like, because of course by the time I came around, he was already long gone, but the kind of the history of Martin Luther King still lives on, so that's how I looked up to him. Like he was a hero. So whenever, Black history, that was the one name that always pops into my mind, Martin Luther King. Like what he did, the courage that he had to do what he did. Like he put himself in a position where he could have got killed every day and end up getting killed. But he knew that he had to do that. He knew it was his time, it was his calling, and he was fearless about it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel like we're still fighting that same battle today. But that kind of gives us hope to not stop fighting, right? To know that one man did all that he could do, whether it was getting arrested, being beat, whatever it may be, and he did it in a non-violent way, which speaks volume, right?
Yeah.
So to me, when you say what is Martin Luther King to me, he's a hero, man. He's idolized. He's not God, like he said, but he was in a position where he helped out a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he did what was right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, to add to that, he's a symbol, right, for this movement.
Yeah.
And, as I've gotten older, I see Martin Luther King Day as a chance, as a reminder, to reflect back just on what you said, right? Where are we today, right? And where have we come from, and where do we still need to go moving forward? And so I always see this day as just a really great opportunity to reflect on, exactly what we're here to talk about today.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's a great day. He definitely should be recognized. I remember here in Columbus when we still had to when we didn't have school, when we still had to go to school for Martin Luther King Day. I remember at our church, we having our own Martin Luther King Day for all the kids. We went in, we had like classes, we did crafts, we had lessons, and it was a whole day. I remember we marched downtown from the church down to the old admin building, and I remember my dad on the steps. He was talking. It was an awesome experience. We had signs and
Your dad was
stuff.
kind of like Martin Luther King to me.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Yeah. So I remember that, and so Columbus, I think, has come a long way.
Absolutely.
But we're still not where we need to be yet. And we'll get more into that. I guess my next question is, is Martin Luther King, represents, so much, and he fought his life. He gave his life for equality and for, racial justice and stuff here in America, all over the world. So do you all feel like we've reached equality or racial justice and things like in America or even in Columbus? Or how you all feel about that? Jerome, anybody?
Somebody else take this one first.
As far as if we're there yet,
Yeah.
if we've reached that, I mean, easy answer would be no.
Yeah.
I feel like you said, we've made strides to get to that point, but it takes a willingness to learn, a willingness to be uncomfortable, to change. Right? I feel
Yeah.
like we, as a society, we recognize, and it's clear now. I think it's never really been a question, but I feel like now more than ever, it's very clear cut that in society, racism, prejudice, whatever it may be, is still live and
Yeah.
brewing, right? But I feel like now is a time where we have to take advantage of the opportunity to speak out, to do the things necessary. So no, we're not where Dr. King wanted us to be. I feel like he would be proud to an extent of where we're trying to get. Like it's like he didn't die for nothing, right? Like he gave his whole life to fight for what reason, and it's 60 years later, we're still fighting. And yeah, that's not the most, I don't want to say it's depressing, but we're still fighting 60 years later because we understand that, you may not win every battle, what I'm saying, but you want to win the war, right? So we're going to keep on trucking. So I feel like we're on our way. In my opinion.
And even, you're talking about still fighting that same fight. I mean, even he was referencing Martin Luther King in his speeches, 100 years, and we're still fighting this fight, and we're still getting dogs leashed on us and water hoses and this and that. And it's like, you'll probably be fighting longer than you want to fight. We will probably still be fighting this fight for a while. I think for me, and I was talking through this with my wife and just trying to figure out, well, how can you appropriately say some things without really making people upset? And, in this conversation, but you actually acknowledged it well. Like if you took Martin Luther King and you dropped him into today, he will probably be astounded at the changes that have taken place. And I think people a lot of times, especially white people, will have this posture, maybe this attitude of, well, look how far things have come. You should be grateful. They won't say it, but it's implied. You should be grateful that things have changed so much. So I think he would be dropped here. He would look around and be astounded at the changes that have been made and a lot of his dreams that I think had come true to some extent. But if he stuck around long enough, he would still see that we have a lot of work to do. Yeah.
I feel like we'd be fuel to his fire because he'd see he'd see it wasn't just African Americans that are trying to fight that fight.
Yeah.
It's both sides of the party that you see, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, whatever. You're fighting for those equal rights. You're fighting for equality. And to me, that's awesome when it's not just, because I think right now as society, we understand that it's not just our fight. Like it's not just black people fighting for that. It's society as a whole that's fighting to reach that same goal. It's just that we have to keep fighting until we get everybody on that same goal.
Even at bare minimum, I would say that I've never seen more white voices trying to at least speak out at bare minimum, posting something to Facebook. At bare minimum, posting a black square because they don't know what else to do to support the black community or the fight that's still going on. I mean, bare minimum, at least just saying it's not right. Things have not changed like they should have, to the extent they should have. Like equality has not been accomplished. Right.
Yeah. So with that, Kyle, I ask you, man. So based on what we've already said and kind of the conversation where it's going, if someone was to say, Kyle, do you believe, of course you probably believe racism still exists, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah,
how bad do you think it is? Like that was a question I was presenting to you. How would you answer that? Like the kind of where are we at as society when you look at that?
Today or through my lifetime?
Today.
I would say today it's the hottest it's ever been. I mean, I think we are as a nation in a time of reckoning with, what has still been lingering since Dr. King's, assassination. And it's never been more front and center for the entire population in my lifetime, at least, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were all alive with Rodney King, and all of that, but we were so young at the time that I really feel like we just learned about that from the history books. I mean, all of, what's happened in the last year and in the last 5 years, 6 years with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's very present on everyone's minds, for better and worse at this point, I think. I'd be curious to know what you think, though. Yeah.
It's funny 'cause around the time George Floyd, you made a video on Facebook. I made a video on Facebook, and which was very, very well received. Had somebody message me and they said, racism it's not a big deal in Columbus. No, it's not here. You all are just jumping on the bandwagon with other people. That's all the way in Minnesota. It's not here in Columbus. Like, you haven't experienced any racism. You proceeded to tell me that I hadn't experienced any racism recently, and I was like, no, that is not true at all. No, I don't experience like direct racism, maybe like in your face being called the N-word every single day. No, that doesn't happen, but there's a lot of subtle things that happen daily, I would say. But not maybe a year ago, like, people forget when whoever it was, they went around Columbus and spray painting the N-word all over the place. One of which was my church, place where we worship. Spray painted the N-word on the front door. That happened right here in Columbus. People, brush that over the side. Oh, racism! It doesn't happen here in Columbus, and that's not true. This is a place where I've grown up my entire life, and I've had a lot of good things happen to me here. A lot of doors have opened here for me. A lot of people have, black, white, all kind of different people have poured a lot into me. So there's a lot of good here, and I would say that the good outweighs the bad, but there is some bad. There's some racism that goes on here in Columbus and around the entire country every single day. And so, I just thought it was fun. Like, you're going to tell me that I don't experience racism. One, I don't even know who you are. First of all, you said, I don't know. We went to high school together. Like, I'm sorry, I don't remember him. He probably might be watching, but I don't even remember you. But you're going to tell me my life experiences and that what I haven't experienced. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, if it doesn't affect you directly, it's almost like it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
And that's because that's sometimes how I view it. And it's not like I've dealt with tons of racism, a lot of race acts my entire life, but it's the subtle things. It's the looks you'll get. It's the clutch of a purse when you walk by. Like, you get that, but you eventually become numb to it. But then when you'll get a comment like that, it's kind of like, for you to sit there and say that it doesn't exist or it's just not there. I don't think that's a fair statement. I mean, I don't know. You guys could, like, so my question or my kind of thought would be, if you don't experience it, does it eliminate the fact that it happens?
It almost feels like that question of, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? It's kind of like, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
It's sort of, when you're talking about, how often does the N-word get painted on a building? Not that often.
I've been here for a long time, and been here.
So,
but I don't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It's happened at our church multiple times that I can remember, which is pretty sad. But racism it's not here in Columbus, though.
Right.
It's happening at East too, but we're not.
Right.
Nobody's keeping count. Go ahead.
But no. My point is just like that. It's far less often that something so overt happens, that form of racism here maybe, than the subtleties like you're talking about, than the job opportunities that you get passed up on, or than a lot of things that no one's really going to see. and some people can't even point to as racism, but that doesn't mean they don't really affect you guys. And not just black people, a lot of other people too. I mean, so I know that's the initial, that's the conversation now,
You're
but
that's right. It's true.
no, that's the real deal.
Yeah, I think that, having for a lot of white people, asking them to describe racism or white privilege is almost like asking them to like draw a picture of the air. It's just like they can't wrap their head around it because they haven't personally experienced it. But it's in all of the subtleties that you mentioned, right? I mean, Chris, you and I can walk into a store and it's a 99% chance in Columbus, Indiana, that most of the people in that store are going to be of the same race as we are, right? Our kids are going to learn about narratives that, enforce our culture's dominance in many ways, right? Or presence. And at the very least, learning about all the positive parts of our cultures, in schools. And it's all those subtle, invisible things, I think a lot of white people take for granted. And I mean, why would you look at something that's never been pointed out to you?
Yeah.
I think it's important also to look at it on both sides.
Yeah.
You have to. I feel like that's something that, and both sides, I feel like, and I hate using the words both sides because it's not like that, right? But I feel like everyone, it shouldn't be sides. It should be a blend, right? Like everybody says America is a melting pot, right? That's what they always say. America's a melting pot, land of the free. Then why are we so divided? Like that, doesn't make sense, right? But I feel like we have to be able to put ourselves on both sides of the table. You have to be able to see your own faults before you can sit there and call out what they're not doing. Oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. So are you just without fault? Are you without your own prejudice? Or it's not realistic, right?
Yeah. There's a couple of different ways you have to go about talking about racism too, right? There's kind of the systemic part of it, and then there's that kind of the personal, everyday, relational part of it. And, I think you can make strides in one, but not the other. Yeah. And I think we're at a point where we're realizing we actually need to make strides in both. And so the reason this is so hard is because, you can't even get everybody a COVID vaccine who needs it. Logistics are tough, right? But it's hard enough to kill something and eliminate something that you can see and touch and can affect your body and that you can study. But it's a much harder thing to eliminate sin problems of the heart, at least in my perspective. I mean, that's a really hard thing to root out, to track down, to even trace back in your family origin, just in white people in general, or in black people in general. I mean, it's just really hard. It's like there's not this amazing one size fits all cure for those issues. Yeah. And so, sometimes we talk about racism. It's like, well, we actually need to be talking about policy, and we need to be talking about, redlining, and we need to talk about redrawing districts, and we need to talk about funding for underprivileged schools in inner cities and different things that, disproportionately affect black people, right? Yeah. But that conversation can also you can fix that part of it. You can fix the systemic issues. It's hard, don't get me wrong, it's very hard to do. But you can fix that and still not fix people's hearts. Yeah. Right? Just because you make laws that help elevate people to places of equality, it doesn't mean that you have fixed racism in the hearts of people.
True. And that's the challenge.
That's the biggest challenge.
I think that's what has already happened. We've fixed a lot of laws and stuff, but still we have that hatred, people's corrupt hearts, and we're all sinners, right? And stuff, but it's that sin nature, I believe, that's in us, and ultimately, it's going to take God's going to take Christ to fix that problem, ultimately, right? Yeah. But like you said, we have laws and stuff that have been written to help elevate and give disenfranchised people or whoever, more equality, but still you see that same hatred still creeping up, all the time. So just curious, Has anyone ever experienced racism or just being treated differently, or you feel like you've been treated differently just because of the way you look, and it could be in a good way, it could be in a negative way. Um, sorry, Jerome.
I mean, I felt it both ways. I've had experiences where I've gotten better treatment because I'm black, and I've also been in plenty of situations where I've gotten the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And in Columbus, and like we said earlier, man, there's a lot more good in Columbus than there is bad. I feel like Columbus is trending in a good direction. Not saying that we fixed everything, not saying everything's great, because that's not the case. But as far as what I've experienced here, I mean, I've been to stores, I've been followed around. I've had interactions with police that was probably overkill. I understand that. And I understand why. I completely understand why. I don't react to it. And it's like I said earlier, you almost get numb to it after a while. Like, you expect certain things. So when it happens, it doesn't rub you the wrong way. Like, I'll get irritated sometimes. Like, I'm the type of guy, if I'm walking in Walmart and I see you, I don't care who you are. If you make eye contact with me, that's you inviting me to tell you hello. Like, that's when my dad raised me. So I'm always going to be like, hey, what's up? I don't care who you are. You can have Make America Great Again hat. I'm going to say what's up. Like, that's just, hey, how you doing? So often I'll say the what's up, and you get either a blank stare, or you get the guy that'll look at the floor. Like, he'll see you and make eye contact, and it's like, it's cool. It's cool. Like, I'm not, it is what it is. Maybe you're not a morning person. I'm not going to take that the wrong way. But I've also been in crowds where being the black guy has benefited me, and it's cool. Like, I enjoyed either way. I enjoyed either way because I'm comfortable within myself, right? So if I get the bad treatment, the good treatment, I'm Jerome at the end of the day, right? So I don't know. What you think?
It probably takes a while to get there.
I mean,
That didn't happen overnight.
It's
I mean,
30,
becoming comfortable in Jerome's skin didn't happen
it's
overnight.
32 years of my parents constantly telling me, be comfortable who you are. Understand that this, that, and the third may happen, but it doesn't, you can't let that make that who you are. Don't, like what my dad used to say, don't allow them to win. Don't allow that to take over. Because if somebody, they want a reaction. In most cases, when something like that happens, they want a reaction from you. They're trying to get that, let me see. And then when you act on it, it's like, see, I told you. So I'm not going to give you that victory. You don't want to speak to me, you don't want to say that? Keep it going.
And then there's the challenge of feeling like if you don't react, that you're just saying it's okay. You can act however you want. And
it's tough.
There's got to be a tough tension to
it's
live
tough,
in.
but you have to just be okay with that. You have to be okay with that. You're not going to please everybody. Everybody's not going to like you, but that's not why you're here, right?
I think I don't know that I've experienced really any overt racism that I could point to and be like, oh yeah, that's right. But growing up playing basketball, like Jerome, you mentioned, like we're a lot of the same person. Love basketball. John grew up playing ball with you too. It's different to be on a basketball court with 9 black guys as a white guy. And I think sometimes you can take things as jokes, or you can take them as like, I don't know, maybe he was really trying to attack me for being white, but I can't really look back and say like, oh, this specific time, I experienced racism. But I actually wanted to ask you guys, because I heard somebody talking about this the other day, how old were you when you think you've experienced what you thought was racism for the first time? And Kyle, speaking to that too, I mean,
I'm going to let you guys answer that first, because I think that's
I was
an interesting thought.
First grade. First grade on the playground. I forget what we were playing, but this girl, she was trying not to, she didn't want me to play. And she called me Blackie. She was making fun of me, said, call me Blackie. And I was like,
it was in first grade.
First grade, yeah. So I told the teacher, and teacher handled it well, but my parents came in and stuff. So I mean, handled the situation then, but like, and then, after that, her and we went to school together for the rest of our time, all the way to sixth grade. And we were cool. I mean, I didn't hate her or anything like that. But yeah, first grade is the first time I experienced any racism. And I remember not too long ago, I made that video. I was like, I would hate for my daughter, who was in first grade, to experience racism like that. And it seemed like my worst nightmare came true, because she did. A kid on the playground told her that her skin looked like poop, and was making fun of her and one of her friends. And again, I talked with the principal and stuff, and handled the situation. Don't have any negative thing to say about that, but it's just like so unfortunate. I was initially, like, I was super mad. I was fuming. I called Jerome. I was like, "Hey, man." I was like, "It happened. It happened, man." He was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Man," I was just so upset. I was so upset. And then after that, I was just like, I was really sad. I was disappointed. And someone like, it's just kids. Kids are being kids. Like, no, I don't think so. Like, there's something that I feel like it's taught. I feel like racism is taught, or it's kids. Kids see it.
It's a learned behavior, man.
Absolutely,
It's
it's a
taught
learned.
and it's caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to deal with. Like, man, I wish, like, I'm 33 now, so over 20 years ago, man, that happened. And like, we're still at the same place almost. Things are a lot better. And the school she goes to is awesome. She's in the Legato program. So there's all kinds of, other people of color that she goes to school with.
Shout out to Clifty Creek.
Yeah, Clifty Creek. Dr. Roberts, or Dr. Roberts over there, Dr. Parsons.
Guys are awesome over there.
Yeah. Kelly McIntyre and Helica Renteria, Reyes, all her teachers, Gracie Patino, Callie Travis, man. It is awesome over there, right?
Y'all tuning in.
I hope so. But like, I was just like, wow, man, all this time, all this stuff, and I felt so bad because I couldn't like shelter her from it. I couldn't like save her from that. It was just something that's going to happen. And the only thing I can do is like, educate her, reinforce to her that she is beautiful, amazing, intelligent, smart, bilingual, young lady. And so, but yeah, first grade. And then, I wish I could say it stopped, but no, and the subtle ones, and then more, blatant, in your face type stuff. And I mean, like, I don't want to turn this into like me sharing all stories of me have experienced racism here, but I could talk all day. But yeah, first grade.
What do you think?
So I didn't recognize it early on. Like, I moved here. I was young, so I moved here from Fresno when I was 7. I do remember in Fresno, it was a different world than Columbus, right? I was in a class where I was full of every race. Like, I look back now in my pictures from Del Mar Elementary, and it was Hispanic kids, white kids, black kids. It was like, okay, it was a melting pot. I got to Columbus, and I went to Richards. Shout out to Richards too.
Now.
Shout out to Richards, WD
Sixth
Raiders.
champions right here, though.
But I got to Richards, and it was like, I'm the only black person I see. Not just, it wasn't like I was the only black student. There was no black teachers. It was just kind of like, okay. Now there was a couple kids in different classes, like Therese Rose went to school with me. But it was to walk into that at 7 years old. I cried probably for the first week, and it was just, it was like, whoa, you threw me in a class where I don't know anybody, and nobody looks like me at all. But I also tip my hat to Richards and to the people I was around. Miss Schneer, who was my second grade teacher, I never felt like I was the outside kid ever. And I brought that up when I did an address earlier. I think it was last year. It might have been this year. This year I did an address at City Hall. And I said that, like, I haven't experienced a lot of feeling excluded in Columbus. Now, of course, the subtle things happen. Like, I think the first one I realized might have been in middle school. I was walking to Walmart when it used to be over there where the, where's it, Bed Bath & Beyond? That's where Walmart used to be.
Yeah.
So I remember I walked, had a big old bubble jacket on and a wave cap. That was just, I want to be cool, bubble jacket, wave cap. And I'm just walking around in Walmart not thinking nothing of it. And you just get followed. I think that's, I don't know if I just never paid attention to the things, but that moment was like, why are you following me around? Like, literally just everywhere I went, it was two workers that were just monitoring me. And it's like, what's going on? And then when you talk to my, I went home to my brother, he's like, you know why they followed you, right? No, that can't be it, because I didn't want to believe that. And then further on in high school, of course, things happened, but it wasn't, I don't know if it was something I just didn't pay attention to. Or like, and it's weird, I was brought up differently, right? I didn't allow that stuff to bother me, because I feel like if I allow that to bother me, then I'm giving you victory in that situation. And I don't want to allow that to happen. So I teach my kids that. Same thing I teach them, like, man, be confident who you are. It's going to happen. Understand that. Deal with it. Move on with it.
Yeah. I think both of you just pointed out two things to me that I just realized, like, I've never in my life been on the playground or anywhere else accosted specifically for the color of my skin, right? And I've never been followed around because of the way that I look in a store, right? I mean, just the fact that, and I respect you so much, Jerome, for not letting that get inside of your core of who you are. But the fact that you even have to deal with that, you know, and you too, John, and your daughter, I mean, that just points to the fact that these forces are still at work, you know.
It happens, man. But I mean, like Chris touched on earlier, man, it's one thing to make systematic changes, do what we think needs to be done to give us the equal playing field. But if the heart is still evil, if the heart has that deep-seated where he done took the mic off, there we go. But if the heart makes you feel that way, it's harder to change somebody's heart. Yeah. But love, Medell said, but love conquers that. So I feel like that's my approach. So I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna keep doing me. That's why I'm gonna be me no matter what. And I hope that the love that I portray rubs off on somebody, to where it may change that interaction you have, may change your mindset of the next Black guy I meet or the next Hispanic guy I meet, whatever it may be, just to change your thought process when you see me, right? I feel like that's.
Yeah, and something I've been, and I don't, you know, this might get into, all these questions kind of bleed into each other just a little bit. And I was telling John and I were catching up just a little bit last night after y'all left, when we were kind of getting prepped for this. Dude, it was so cold. We were sitting there too long. I should have invited you in my car or something.
It was good.
It was a good conversation. But, you know, I realized even being invited into this, which, you know, seriously, big thank you to the people, you know, part of the Alliance who allowed this to happen, like this conversation, because y'all didn't have to do that, and y'all didn't have to pitch that, and you could have picked many other white people, right, to talk to. So just going way back with you guys, just growing up friends and stuff, I can remember times where I probably participated in things or laughed at the jokes, you know, racial slurs or racial jokes, in ways that I've realized I needed to repent of that sin. But also just, you know, times looking back where I didn't really know things were a problem. I didn't know I was participating in the moment. And even, you know, I can specifically remember I got on the basketball team at East, I got invited to pray at our banquet at the end of the year. Just pray for the dinner that we were about to have with, you know, freshman, JV, and varsity. And my mom started talking to one of the Black players' moms, and she was a woman of faith, and they were Christian family and stuff. And then later on, the mom started talking to her son, you know, who was on the team, and was like, "Oh yeah, you know, it wasn't that prayer great? Isn't, you know, I'm so glad to hear they're a Christian family and this." And he said, "Mom, there's no way Chris is a Christian." There's no way.
Mhm.
And he was saying that, the only reason he was saying that was because I would make jokes that I thought were jokes, but they were really like punches to the gut and probably just reminders of like what you're saying, like, this isn't just kid stuff. This isn't just boys being boys. It's like thinking that you can make jokes because we're in the clear. And it's like, we're not, you know, and even stories, you know, I told my wife a story of, you know, somebody in my family, like how prejudice and racism specifically is passed down. It really is, because, you know, I remember a story one of my family members told me of being on the bus. A girl was messing with her, pulling her hair, you know, and she grew up in the projects in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I'm from, where I was born. And all of a sudden, you know, she would watch kids get off the bus. You know, if you were going to fight a white girl, a black girl was going to fight a white girl, every black kid would get off the bus at that next stop to watch it and to get their licks in. And they would just kind of fight together. And you've got to know, you know, she would start waiting until the very last stop to get off the bus.
Yeah.
And you've got to know that when I'm on the court, to reference back to maybe basketball, is a place I've been the most with a lot of black people at one time. In whether it's Bloomington or Lafayette or, you know, in Springfield, Missouri, wherever I was, and I'm like the only white guy or maybe with 8 or 9 black guys on the basketball court, you have to know that I'm thinking about that story. Like, man, I ain't fouling nobody. Like, I'm not trying to bring any trouble. I'm not trying to, because of something that was put into me by someone in my family, that it was a preservation tactic. It was them telling me, hey, you need to protect yourself.
Yeah.
If you're in these situations, you know,
Mhm.
or just stories like that, that also on the flip side, that, you know, I think a lot of black families, like, you have to have certain conversations with your kids about, hey, if the police pull you over, you need to act this way. That if you're around a bunch of white people, you need to act this way and this way and this way. Don't stir up trouble. Don't cause commotion. Don't be too loud. You know, all those kinds of things that are not fair to have to tell people. Those are preservation tactics.
Yeah.
That's you guys loving your families and wanting them to survive and to do well in the world. And so at some point, somebody has to figure out how to communicate those things without instilling racism or prejudice into their kids. And that's hard, because nobody's going to want to be the ones to say, you know what, I'm actually not going to have that conversation because I don't want to instill this in my kids. I don't want to instill in them that they can't trust white people or that they can't trust black people. And it's really difficult to do that. But I think that happens kind of in black and white communities and families.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my parents, shout out to mom and dad. I think they did a great job with us, because they came from, you know, this crazy racism stories, like real, for real stuff. You know, I have some couple like stuff like, man, that's crazy, but like their whole lifetime, you know. And I've never heard them like say anything, you know, anything telling me like all white people are bad or I should hate white people. Nothing like that. And I know it's because of their faith. Their you know, my dad's pastor, mom, she's pastor as well, you know, and I know it's because of their faith. If they hadn't been able to like forgive people, and let some things go, not forget, but forgive, then I think they would have, that all the stuff that they had experienced, I think that would definitely have transferred over into me. And then so learning from them, like looking at like how could my parents not hate white people, all the stuff that they had to endure and go through, like, and then I transfer that over to myself, like, okay, if my parents can do that, like I can definitely forgive people and not have hate and resentment for white people, or even that exact person that had did me wrong. So shout out to them, that, you know, they taught us to love people, and that you know, to forgive people. Love conquers Love conquers all. I think Martin Luther King said, "Love is the only thing that can turn an enemy into a friend," and I believe that's true. I believe that's true, for sure, for sure. Um, I think this is getting good, man.
No, no, we're good, man. I want to, sometimes throughout a conversation, you got to rip the Band-Aid off, right? You got to go ahead and just throw it out there. So I understand where we are. We're there. So I understand, like, as far as the climate that we are in today as a country, as a city, whatever it may be. And we all know, we all watch the news, right? And we understand how the media, I will say the media controls the conversation, the climate. They control pretty much a lot, right? They show you what they want to.
Sure.
Anyway, we all know what happened a few weeks ago, right, at the U.S. Capitol, right? There's been plenty of conversation on both sides. Like, oh, I can't believe this happened, or man, if they were black, this would have ended this way, right? Well, when the Black Lives Matter tried, they had all these people outside, but then they allowed the white people to walk in there. And from my perspective, it almost looked like they walked in like a tour. Like I saw a video the other day where there was a cop in the room, was like, all right, guys, you did what you needed to do. Let's go. I think I was at Walmart. My wife called me. She's like, Jerome, I was getting a haircut. She's like, Jerome, are you not watching the news? I'm like, no, I'm not watching the news. Open your Facebook. Open it up. I'm seeing people just walk into US like in line. I'm like, come on, man. So I have to get that opinion from you guys. Like, do you believe that had it been a different situation, or if they were black people, would that have been a different situation? Like, I have to ask that question because it's just, to me, yes. I'll just give you my answer first. I feel like yes, it would have been 100% different, and that showed a lot about where we are as a country. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think what happened at the Capitol was despicable and probably one of the most glaring examples of white privilege that I've seen in a very, very long time. I mean, that for all the reasons that you just said, the complacency, or at least just the confusion of the Capitol police force at the time. That same, I think we all know in our hearts that would be a very different situation had the color of those people's skins been different.
And everything about it was weird to me. Like they were just, and you hear a lot in the media. It was nonviolent. They were just protesting. But it was
violent.
But that was my
they
part.
They destroyed federal property.
Man, yeah. And that's what blew my mind. That's what kind of made me sit back and look at the situation. Like, and like I said, I'm reading the comments, and I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. That's on the live comments. And I don't want it to be like, well, Trump's always said he's ignored racism, so I ignore every racist thing that happens in the world. If it's blatant, I'll speak out. I'm a very vocal person, but there's a time and a place for everything. I don't want to give attention to everything, but with this one situation, I gave my entire attention to it because it showed me on a grand scale where we are, like, as a world or as a country. Like, we allowed that to happen in front of everybody, in front of the entire world. We allowed that to happen. But we've, in the same instant, at the same place, shown what we would do if it was black people that were coming. And I've heard, there are a lot of white people in the Black Lives Matter movement. And I love that. You spoke on earlier, like the amount of white people that are speaking up. I love that. But that's an argument I've heard. But there's a lot of white people in that too. So but you got to understand, there was white people that were along with people back then in the 50s and 60s that were getting water hosed and everything. Because it's almost like you're viewed as, well, if you're rolling with the black people, we look at you just like them. We're just going to put you all in one category, which it sucks, but it's the reality of the situation. So when you look at the fact that at the U.S. Capitol, I don't think is like the magnitude of that. This is the U.S. Capitol.
It's not Target.
It's not like you let somebody go to Walmart. Like, oh, I can't believe you got past the greeter. We couldn't do too much. Like, no, you got inside the U.S. Capitol, inside, sat down at desk, like,
yeah.
And this is our country. But then in the same breath, it's the land of the free. It's land of opportunity, the melting pot. We're just so, I don't know. I don't know.
I'd love to get your thoughts first.
So yeah, like you, I was doing something. I was at school actually, and then we have like a family group text, and it's blowing up. People were like, they're like cousin, and mom, dad, like, yeah, this is just really unfortunate. Like, what's going on? So look, I was like, oh my goodness, wow. So at first I was in shock, like, wow, people are really, rioting at the Capitol building. And then my immediate thought after that was like, man, if that was black people,
Oh, they shut that down
Man.
immediately.
a whole lot of people would be dying. And I don't want to make light of the people that did die.
No, absolutely.
No.
But I feel like there would be a whole lot more people killed. I feel like those people wouldn't have been able to go home afterward, just walk out, go back home, chill at the crib. Then the police show up. Like, I don't think that would have happened at all. I've seen a lot of people, comparing it to like the Black Lives Matter things, movements and or protests and stuff like that, and they're like comparing the riots or whatever, right? And so, first of all, I don't think rioting and looting that's right. That's not right at all. No matter who's doing it, whether it's black people or white people, that's not right at all.
Say that.
But I don't think they're like, well, this caused this amount of damage, and then the Capitol building was a lot less damage. So like I said earlier, there's a difference between the Capitol building and Target. I think that's different, right? No, you shouldn't destroy property. No, you shouldn't be violent. And that's the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King believed in. He believed in nonviolence. He said multiple times that he didn't believe in riots and stuff like that. I think there's a quote that he made that's taken out of context a lot, where he is talking about riots. He says it's like the cries of the unheard, right? But he also says he does not condone violence, and that's not what he believed in. That's not what he preached. So I don't believe in that at all. But I can see how aggression gets built up for years and years and years, where you have no hope, and it ends up into be some violence, or you have some people who are basically opportunists, and they see a protest and then they're just going to disrupt the whole thing by causing fights and all kind of stuff like that. But anyways, so the Capitol building, like, yeah, I was right there, like, immediately I thought, wow, there's no way that would happen if it was black people. Reading an article the other day, it was like, they said it was actually in the Republic. They said, like, it looked like the officers just let the people through. Like, they said they had these barricades. They said they looked like bike racks. It said, and then they said they just opened it up and let them go straight through. Like, so
There's videos of it.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever was actually happening, which we may never really know,
Mhm.
it looked weird,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And like people have to acknowledge that. It was strange.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was their attempt to overthrow the government, a coup, because they didn't like the outcome of something. And I was thinking about this. It reminded me, like, the whole thing, the election and stuff. It reminds me of like PE class. When I'm playing a game and I got to teach my students this, like, we're playing a game and there's a winner and there's a loser. And there's always like a kid or 2 or 3 kids that as soon as they lose, automatically they're like, they cheated.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, all right, let's talk about this. Did you see them cheat? No. So how do you know they cheated? I just know they cheated. There's no way.
That
There's
used
no
to
way.
be Jerome, man.
Well, I'm a sore loser, but that's just, yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
to lose, man. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I had
Yeah.
to teach my students, like, okay, they didn't cheat. Like, you didn't see them cheat. There's nothing that shows them cheat. I didn't see them cheat. Like, if I did, then I would have called it. But I got to teach kids that, like, sometimes you lose. And that's how I think the whole thing. Like, you lost the election. You've tried to prove over and over again that there was corruption and fraud multiple times in court. They've thrown out your pleas, your outcry or whatever to say that there was corruption and fraud. There's no evidence of it. You just lost, right? So but then people are like, they cheated still, and they believe all this misinformation. And that's the other thing. There's just so much information out there. So like, I'm sure somebody watching this now, they have some sort of facts that they're probably in the comments. I don't know, they're probably going to say, but it was like, wow, just mind blowing for me that that even happened, and that people let that happen too. And then the other thing, that other people are justifying it as well. So, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one at the table who doesn't have a child. I'm
Mhm.
curious, how do you talk to your kids about what's going on right now? I mean, Chris, I think your daughter's still a little too young, but
So we have about, just to throw it out there, we've about 5 minutes, fellas. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up about 5 minutes.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that to let whoever's watching, whatever's going on, that this is a conversation that's going to continue. I think that was the goal of today, was to have the conversation, to start it, and just to show, be an example to the community of what is possible, what needs to happen, what type of conversations need to happen. So whether it's at your workplace, whether it's just social gatherings, whatever it may be, these are the conversations that need to happen. Because I think there's been several times throughout this conversation where you said things, or even John, and I'm like, man, I haven't thought of it in that light. Like, I would never know. You said it yourself, like, man, I didn't know that you guys dealt with that. Like, that's not something that I've ever dealt with. So to me, it was alarming. And the reason I brought also the 5 minutes, there was one question that we have to hit and give each person about a minute to answer. And the question was, what can you do as an individual to help create positive change in your community? And if we each can just tackle that real briefly, because I feel like that we live here, right? Columbus is our home. This is where we are every day. This is where we're going to be affected the most, right? So what can you do, in your day-to-day activities or whatever, the people you interact with, what can you do that helps promote and helps create change in a positive way? Whoever wants to jump on that first.
Okay, I'll go. I'll answer your question first real quick, that you asked about teaching my daughter. Like, I just got to try to break it down on a level that she can understand. I think, and what helped me a lot is that positive reinforcement. Like, you're awesome, you're so smart, you're intelligent. Reinforcing that, because there's going to be some people on the playground that tell her that her skin looks like poop, and for her to know, like, even though that they said my skin looks like poop, my skin is beautiful. So I try to instill that into her, and as she gets older, I'll do more things, get a little bit more in depth. But so
thanks, John.
Yeah, with creating positive change in the community, I think there's a lot of good people here in Columbus, and a lot of great teachers, coaches, people have poured into me. So I would say, get involved in your community. You can volunteer, you can be a coach. Like, some of the most influential people in my life have been coaches, out there on the football field. Coach Gaddis, Coach Martin, Coach Vogel, all of these great guys. And I've learned so much from them. Just being a man, just be a man, being responsible, accountability and things. So we need great people to continue to do that, to influence younger people. So get involved in your community, and do your best to be a light, for positive change. So, like, I feel like all three of you are great people, and it would be a shame if you just kept all that to yourself, or just only to your family, which I don't think you all are doing. But like, I think we all have gifts and things that we could share with our community that will definitely be beneficial for the little boy down the street, or the little girl, in the classroom or wherever. So I think that's one way we could create positive change, and also to vote.
Yeah, y'all should go vote. Yep, that's important. Next, go ahead.
That's great.
Yeah. On a local level, sometimes it's really hard, because one of these questions we didn't even answer really was, like, how bad is the tension in Columbus? How bad is the racial tension here? And you touched on it a little bit, in your stories, but I think some of the way this is part of it. This is part of the solution, having these conversations, and not even having these public conversations. That was the hard part about this is like they're, answering the capital question, answering some other questions is like, we didn't even get to, white privilege.
Yeah.
Or white fragility or any kind of stuff like that really starts making people mad. But I think in a lot of ways, you got to figure out how to raise up Black voices. And I'm not the kind of person that tries to say you should exalt voices just for the sake of doing it. I mean, if somebody doesn't have anything good to say, don't do that. Yeah. Right. You need to exalt people who do have some good things to say. As far as like local churches, I think we have to figure out how do we lament these things? Like, so, being a leader at our church, how do we present these things to our people and let them know, like, these are serious issues and we need to check ourselves, our hearts. It starts with you, your repentance. And, I firmly believe that Jesus Christ can heal a person's heart and, make them turn from a way that they once thought was proper, and appropriate to something that is a more biblically based worldview. True. Of how, we are all created in the image of God. And so to mistreat people is to attack the image of God, right? As image bearers of him. And so I think there's a way to do that with, it's really hard because the demographics are so skewed, right? What I've heard is 2% of Columbus is Black, and then about a little over 70% is white. And, I mentioned to you last night, John, how do you form relationships? Because that's the only way this changes. It takes somebody from being a Black person to a Black friend, like to being a person, and you have to have that relationship with them. And so I'm super blessed to have grown up with you guys, to have those relationships, to not just be able to say, oh, I've got this Black friend. It's like, no, like I grew up playing action figures with Jerome,
Action figures, man.
I know. So, but how do you?
Yeah,
they're action figures.
I call them action figures.
They were wrestlers. They were action figure wrestlers.
See, thank you.
But anyway, but how do you make? It's a really difficult thing to make 2% of the population friends with 70% of the population. Almost impossible, I would say. Like logistically, it's like you don't have that much time to explain what it's like to be Black to that many people. And a lot of, I told Jerome when he messaged me about doing this, like, I appreciate you having the conversation, because I know some people, and even Black friends of mine, have said like, yeah, I'm just really sick of having the conversation and having to do that. And it's like, yeah, that sucks, and I apologize for that. But my apology won't heal anything necessarily, but hopefully loving people will, so I don't know. There's a lot of ways diversity is raised up here that I don't think maybe in reality has helped things. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mr. Kyle.
I agree. Yeah, I'm gonna answer your question in two different ways. To Chris's point earlier, I think it takes personal accountability and community accountability. And I think from the personal side of things, what individuals can do to better the cause is to just be a little less certain that your worldview is the only worldview that defines the experience of the world. Live in those questions. And I know that people love certainty, and a lot of people in a lot of ways need certainty for different things. But this is a space where we're all kind of playing dodgeball in the dark. And I think we need to continue in that way. And being open to those experiences, not being afraid to be wrong, but to learn from those missteps and those mistakes along the way on both sides. From the community side of things, I think there are a lot of organizations in our community who are working right now to further the cause of racial equity and equity, socioeconomic, gender equity, the full spectrum, which is one of the things that makes our community so great. And I'm very lucky in my role at Heritage Fund that I get to see the best parts of our community, or what our community aspires to be. And there are some really high aspirations out there in the work that's going on. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to get out and get involved with an organization, with a cause, with a group of people, and see where that takes you. Because I think that first step is always the hardest, from feeling powerless about this issue to being empowered about this issue.
And a lot of it, I know we got to wrap up. You have to figure out, as white people, like, I'm having these conversations with people who can't figure out how to let go of power. and can't, they just can't figure out how to not be offended. Call it white fragility, call it whatever you want. But in this conversation, we have to figure out how to feel offended, but then remember that we can't tell other people how they should feel. I can't tell you how you should feel about your experience being Black. True. I can't tell you about why you shouldn't be afraid of police officers when you get pulled over. Like, I can't do it with my wife. I can't tell her how she should feel about something. And you guys probably get that, right? But in the same way, we have to stop telling people, well, this isn't logical. You shouldn't feel this way about this. This isn't a race thing. You shouldn't feel that, whatever it may be. And that's the danger, is to try to control how other people should feel and think. And, it's just not right. So we kind of got to let go of some of that. And I'm speaking to me too. True. Because my reaction is like, well, Jerome, you shouldn't feel that way. Why do you feel that? When I messaged you a couple weeks ago, well, you shouldn't feel this way about this. Like, no, that's probably not right of me to say.
But it's necessary. You got to, like I said, and I'll wrap it up. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I say that all the time.
Yep.
Until you can find comfort in that spot, you're not going to change. You're not going to grow, because you're doing the same thing. You're around the same people. You have the same conversation every day. You touched on it a little bit. Like, I wouldn't just call it, I'm having the Black friend, but how often do you have lunch with somebody outside of your race? So like me and Kyle, we have lunch all the time. Dom Glover, have coffee all the time. And literally it's
shout
out Dom. That's my guy, man. But it's to have that conversation, to experience something that you're not used to. You have to have that. You can't learn and be comfortable with another race until you've experienced what they go. You're not going to experience, but have that conversation to tell those stories, to have that. And it's not even just a moment. John said earlier, I don't want to be up here just blotting all the racist stories I've had, but just to have a conversation to understand that, man, he grew up over here. I grew up over here. We grew up two totally different lives, but we are still exactly the same. That's it. Like this, the only thing that's different is I tan a little bit better than Chris. That's pretty much it. I spent the night.
Vampire, man.
I spent the night at this guy's house so many times as a kid growing up. His mom is still really good friends with my mom. But it's realizing that you're the same and realizing that love is what's going to fix it. So as far as a community, we're moving in the right way. We have a lot of organizations that people in Columbus that are watching this, make sure you guys are seeking information as well. I know as far as a community, we need to do a better job of putting it out there so that you guys know what's going on and know all the different boards and all the different organizations that you can join. But we can't just sit back and just wait for somebody to bring it to your door. Like, hey, by the way, did you know this organization was here, or this organization? If you want to make a difference, join something. NAACP would love to have members join. That's an organization that we have here in Columbus. We don't have a lot of members. It's an open opportunity to come join the organization that's helping push the movement, right? You have to seek that. You have to go after it. I feel like as a community, if we speak out against things like that, we continuously show love, not hate. That's how you change it. That's how you push the dial. That's how you move forward. So to wrap things up, fellas, I appreciate it. I want to give a special shout out to John, because really this was supposed to be John's keynote speaking event. And I was hyped. I shared it. I'm like, this is my guy. He's going to tear it down like he always does. And little do you know, John's a big talker, man. I've known John for my whole life. John just started talking a lot like 4 years ago. And it's just blows my mind, man. Like when John told me he was a teacher, I was like, bro, there's no way you don't talk. Like, how you going to do this? And now he's speaking in front of hundreds of people, man. And it's awesome, man. You're talented at it. So I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to intrude on, your keynote address and having this conversation. And, be on the lookout. Go ahead and get the announcement, man, because we're not done after today.
Yeah. So like Jerome said earlier, this is a conversation that we're going to continue in the future, and be on the lookout for Jerome and I. We've been wrestling around with this idea for a long time, but we're starting a podcast. Today is actually the very first episode. It's called the Jerome and John Show.
Y'all have been, Jerome and John. This is the first episode.
Wait till you hear the theme song.
Yeah.
The theme song is fire.
So we're going to have Kyle and Chris come back for another episode later on down the line.
We have women on here too, because we got to get your opinion too.
Absolutely. So we're going to try to do this regularly. So keep an eye out for that. And we appreciate everybody viewing. We want to thank BCSC. We want to thank Dr. Roberts. Want to thank Josh Burnett.
Josh Burnett.
Everybody want to thank Nick
God.
Williams. Also want to thank the African American Pastors Alliance, the NAACP, everybody who had a part in this program, putting it together, and all the scholarships and all that stuff. Thank you for letting us be a part of this. Trusting us with this idea that we had. Thank you all for participating, and we really appreciate it. So hope you all have a great rest of your day and have a great week. See y'all later.